This year's Washington Catholic Athletic Conference boys basketball semifinals should be exciting to watch. The semifinals will feature 4 of the top teams in the Washington, D.C. area with one goal, to get to the championship game. The first semifinal game will have Bishop McNamara take on St. John's. McNamara is coming off a statement 51-42 victory over Bishop O'Connell in the quarterfinals. The Mustangs were led by Drexel commit Sam Green and freshman standout Makai Mitchell. Green finished with 14 points and 7 rebounds, while Mitchell added 15 points and 14 rebounds. McNamara's defense held O'Connell's Aiko Adams to 3 points and big man Nate Watson scoreless. St. John's, who came into the playoffs as the number 1 seed, defeated St. Mary's Riken 77-55 on Friday. Maryland commit and potential WCAC Player of the Year Anthony Cowan Jr. scored 16 points, while teammate Jeff Dowden had 11 points. When St. John's and Bishop McNamara squared off in the regular season, the Cadets won both games. The first time they played each other, St. John's won 73-53. In that game, St. John's outscored McNamara 42-19 in the first half. The second game, McNamara had a 21-11 lead at the end of the first quarter, but St. John's managed to come back and win 72-67. Jeff Dowden scored 22 points. Anthony Cowan had 19 points, while Dejon Clayton scored 15. The key for Bishop McNamara to win this game is defense. The Mustangs will need to find a way to stop St. John's big three of Anthony Cowan, Jeff Downton, and Dejon Clayton. All 3 of those players have hurt Bishop McNamara this year. Combined, they averaged 51.5 points per game when playing against McNamara. If the Cadets let Cowan, Clayton, or Dowden get into rhythm, it's going to be hard to see them make it to the WCAC championship game. The second semifinals game will be a rematch of last year's WCAC championship as DeMatha faces Gonzaga. In the quarterfinals on Friday, DeMatha beat Good Counsel 95-53. There was balanced scoring throughout the Stags lineup. DJ Harvey led the way with 16 points. Reginald Gardner and Nate Darling finished with 11 points. Guard Ryan Allen had 10 points, while freshman Marvin Price added 9. Gonzaga had a tough quarterfinals opponent as they took on Paul VI. Despite going against players like BJ King and Corey Manigault, the Purple Eagles won 76-66. The game was tied at the end of the first quarter, but a strong second quarter by Gonzaga gave them a 36-30 lead going to the half. The Purple Eagles outscored the Panthers 15-7 in the third quarter, which allowed them to break away. Gonzaga guard Chris Likes finished with a game-high 34 points and knocked down 4 3-pointers. Eddie Scott was second on the team in scoring with 10 points, while Miles Dredd and Nigel Stewart had 9 points each. Whenever DeMatha and Gonzaga squares off against each other, it's always a hard-fought game. In last year's WCAC championship game, it took 2 overtimes to decide the champion. The season series between the two teams was tied. Gonzaga won the first game 73-70. The Purple Eagles had 4 players score in double figures. Chris Likes led the way with 30 points and made a clutch 3-point basket in the final seconds of the game to help his team win. DeMatha's top performer in that game was Markel Fultz, who finished with 21 points. DeMatha got their revenge on January 31st as they beat Gonzaga 66-62. The Purple Eagles got out in front early. Guard Prentice Hubbs scored 23 points in the first 2 quarters and helped his team take a 41-30 lead at halftime. But once again, DeMatha showed they played their best basketball in the second half. The Stags outscored Gonzaga 36-21 in the second half to run away with the victory. Markel Fultz scored 28 points to lead all scorers. After a strong first half, Hubb only scored 3 points in the second half. With the championship game on the line, expect this game to be even closer and more intense than the first 2. Both teams will need their best players to be at the top of their game if they want to move on. Ultimately, this game will come down to who wants it more. With 2 good games on hand, expect American University to be jam-packed Sunday evening. The first semifinal game will tip off at 4:30, while the second game is scheduled for a 6:15 tip.